Through the lens, a photographer's journey beyond the ordinary. Introduction. The journey begins. Photography is more than capturing a moment. It's about capturing the soul of a scene, the emotion of an instant, and the story that lies beneath the surface. I wasn't always aware of this. For years, my photos were safe. Decent compositions, good lighting, technically correct, but they lacked something. They lacked me. This is a story of transformation told through my journey as a photographer. It's also a guide, an invitation for you to look through your own lens and see the world in a new way. Together, we'll explore techniques, push boundaries, and embrace the imperfections that make art unique. This book is for anyone who has ever picked up a camera and wondered how to go beyond the ordinary. Let's begin. Chapter 1. The Critique. The sun hung low over the desert town of Harmony, its golden rays painting the adobe buildings in warm hues. I parked my RV in front of a small gallery with a weathered wooden sign that read, Evelyn's Visions. I had no idea that stepping through that door would change the way I saw the world forever. Inside, the air was cool and smelled faintly of varnish and old paper. The walls were adorned with photographs that seemed alive. A black and white portrait of a wrinkled fisherman gazing out to sea caught my eye. I felt as though I could hear the waves and smell the salt air. Next to it, a shot of a bustling market in Morocco practically buzzed with energy. "Beautiful, aren't they?" a voice said behind me. I turned to see an older woman with wild gray hair and piercing blue eyes. She held a camera in one hand and a steaming mug in the other. "I'm Evelyn. Welcome to my gallery." "Your work is incredible," I said, staring at the photos. "It's like they're alive." She chuckled. "That's the goal, isn't it? To make people feel something?" We chatted for a while, and eventually I mentioned my own photography, and Evelyn's eyes lit up. "Let me see your work," she said, gesturing to a nearby table. I hesitated. Sharing my photos always made me feel nervous, but something about her felt safe. So I pulled out my laptop and showed her my portfolio. A collection of landscapes and travel shots from my RV adventures. Evelyn flipped through them in silence. Finally, she looked up. "These are technically fine," she said, "but they're missing something." "Missing what?" I asked, my stomach sinking. "Soul," she said simply. "You're showing people what's in front of you, but now what's inside you. Photography isn't about what you see, it's about what you feel." I frowned, unsure how to respond. Evelyn smiled kindly, handed me an old, battered journal, and this belonged to me when I was starting out. It's full of notes and sketches that help me find my voice. Take it. Consider it a challenge. I opened the journal. Inside were cryptic phrases like, "Let light tell the story," or "Frame with intention." There were rough sketches of landscapes and portraits, along with notes about composition, color, emotion. I looked up at Evelyn, who was watching me with a twinkle in her eye. "You have potential," she said, "but you need to stop playing it safe. Go out there and find your story. When you've taken photos that make people feel something, come back and show me." With that, she turned and walked away, leaving me alone with the journal and a head full of questions. I stepped back into the golden light of the desert and felt a spark of something I hadn't felt in years. Inspiration. Chapter 2. Light tells the story. The journal sat on the passenger seat as I drove away from Harmony, the pages whispering promises of discovery. Evelyn's words echoed in my mind. Light tells the story. It felt like a riddle, one I couldn't wait to unravel. I didn't drive far before I found the perfect place to stop. A stretch of desert where the sun was beginning its descent. The landscape was stark but beautiful, with cacti casting long shadows over the cracked earth. I grabbed my camera and journal, eager to put Evelyn's challenge into practice. Flipping to the first page, I read, "Observe the light before you frame the shot. Where does it fall? What does it highlight? What does it hide?" I stood still, letting the desert speak to me. The sun was low, the golden light stretched across the terrain. Shadows grew long and dramatic, creating natural lines that led the eye toward the horizon. I crouched down, framing a shot where a lone cactus stood against a glowing sky. The photo was fine, but fine wasn't enough anymore. I flipped to another page. Light isn't just an illuminator, it's a storyteller. Use it to reveal the unseen. I thought about the scene in front of me. The cactus was stark and beautiful, but what about its surroundings? What story was I missing? Moved around, observing how the light interacted with the rocks and the sand and the sky. Then I saw it. A small flower growing out of the base of the cactus, its petals glowing in the golden light. It was a quiet detail, easily overlooked, but it told a deeper story about resilience in the harsh desert. I crouched low, changing my angle to make the flower the star of the shot. The cactus became the backdrop, its shadow framing the fragile bloom. Then I clicked the shutter. I knew I had something more than an image. I'd captured a feeling. I spent hours in that desert, chasing the light, experimenting with angles. Each shot felt like a conversation, the light teaching me to see the world differently. By the time the sun slipped below the horizon, painting the sky in fiery reds and purples, I felt a sense of accomplishment I hadn't felt in years. Back at the RV, I reviewed my photos on my laptop. They weren't perfect, but they were honest. They told stories. And for the first time, I felt like I was beginning to understand Evelyn's challenge. I picked up the journal and wrote my very first note. Light reveals what words cannot. Then with a smile, I turned the page to see what lesson awaited me next. Chapter 3, Frame with Intention. The desert sky was still dark when I woke the next morning, the journal resting on the table beside me. Sleep had been elusive, my mind racing with questions. What did Evelyn mean by frame with intention? The phrase sounded simple, yet hinted at something deeper, a way to transform an ordinary image into a captivating story. Brewed a cup of coffee and flipped open the journal to its next entry. Composition is the silent storyteller. Every element in your frame must have a purpose. Ask yourself, why is this here? As the sun began to rise, I packed my camera and set out to a nearby canyon. The jagged cliffs and winding trails felt like the perfect place to explore this new lesson. The air was crisp, the light soft and diffused by morning mist. I climbed a rocky outcrop, finding a vantage point that overlooked the canyon. The view was breathtaking, a sweeping panorama of rugged cliffs, the river snaking below like a silver ribbon. Instinctively, I lifted my camera to capture the scene, but something stopped me. Why is this here? Evelyn's words echoed in my mind. I lowered the camera, took a step back, letting my eyes roam over the landscape. The cliffs were magnificent, but what story did they tell? I scanned the scene once again, searching for a focal point, something that could anchor the image. Then I saw it. A solitary tree clinging to the edge of the canyon, its gnarled branches reaching toward the sky like a defiant survivor. I repositioned myself, framing the tree against the vast expanse of the canyon. The cliffs and the river became supporting characters, their grandeur highlighting the tree's tenacity. The composition felt deliberate, every element contributing to the narrative. Click. I moved through the canyon, applying the same mindset to every shot. A cluster of wildflowers became a symbol of resilience. A weathered rock face etched with cracks told the story of time's relentless passage. Even the shadows cast by the rising sun added depth and mystery, guiding the eye through each frame. By the time the sun was high overhead, I felt a sense of clarity I hadn't experienced before. It wasn't enough to simply photograph what was in front of me. I needed to understand why each element mattered and how it worked together to tell a cohesive story. That evening, back in the RV, I reviewed the day's photos. They weren't just pictures of a canyon, they were stories of survival, strength, and beauty in adversity. Each frame felt intentional, every detail serving a purpose. In the journal, I added my own note beneath Evelyn's. Composition is the framework of emotion. Intention transforms a view into a vision. I closed the journal, feeling a growing sense of purpose. Evelyn's challenge was more than an exercise in photography. It was a journey to discover my own voice, and I was just getting started. The beauty, Chapter 4, The Beauty of Imperfection. The wind howled through the canyons, carrying with it the scent of sagebrush and the promise of adventure. I'd been on the road for weeks now, each new place offering fresh lessons, new insights into both photography and myself. But despite the progress I had made, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was still missing. Evelyn had told me to embrace imperfection. But what did that mean in the world of art, a field often defined by precision and control? It was quite an evening when the sun was setting behind a ridge of mountains. I came across my answer. I'd been photographing an old barn. The light was warm and forgiving, casting long shadows that seemed to stretch like fingers across the weathered wood. I had the perfect shot framed. Lines sharp, light soft, the composition exact. But something felt off. The scene was beautiful, but it didn't stir anything inside me. It was technically perfect, yes, but it lacked the raw, visceral quality I was beginning to crave in my work. Then, as if the world was responding to my frustration, a gust of wind shook the barn door, causing it to creak open. The moment was fleeting, but in that instant, something shifted. The barn, once still and stoic, came to life. Dust swirled in the beam of light. The shadows on the barn's exterior became deeper and more complex. I grabbed my camera and clicked, not knowing what I was capturing, but trusting that the scene was telling me something important. When I looked at the image later that night, I saw it. The imperfection. The door was slightly ajar, the dust swirling unpredictably, the shadows no longer linear but chaotic, yet strangely beautiful. The shot wasn't flawless, wasn't even close to perfect, but it had life, emotion, and a story to tell. I picked up the journal and read the entry that awaited me. Perfection is the enemy of expression. The beauty lies in the broken, the worn, the lived in. In those moments of imperfection, the truth reveals itself. I smiled, feeling the weight of those words settle into my heart. I had been so focused on technical perfection that I forgot what Evelyn told me from the beginning. Photography is about feeling, about capturing something more than just what the eye can see. It's about embracing the mess, the unexpected, and the rawness of life. I made a note in my journal. In the flawed, the imperfect, lies the soul of the moment. That evening, I sat outside my RV and watched the stars begin to twinkle overhead. The world felt vast, and I felt small, but in the best way. I had no idea where this journey would take me next, but I was finally learning to let go of the need of perfection and embrace the wild, beautiful chaos of life. My photography was no longer just about capturing images. It was about capturing truths. Chapter 5, Finding Your Voice. As I made my way to the heart of the Pacific Northwest, the dense forests and misty mornings felt like a dream. Every scene seemed more dramatic than the last, with towering trees, rushing rivers, and the soft, almost magical light that filtered through the ever present fog. It was the kind of place that inspired awe in anyone who looked at it. But as I set up my camera for yet another sweeping landscape shot, I began to question myself again. Who was I trying to impress with these photographs? Was I capturing the essence of this beautiful place? Or was I simply trying to create images that would please an audience, that would fit into the mold of what I thought good photography should be? I returned to the journal, flipping through the pages until I landed on a lesson that caught my attention. Your voice is in the spaces between the frames, in the moments you choose to leave behind, and in the way you see the world that no one else can. Don't shoot to impress, shoot to express. I closed the journal, the weight of those words settling over me like the morning fog. It was time to stop worrying about what I thought people wanted to see. And it was time to stop trying to fit my work into a box and start showing the world how I saw it. With that, I set off into the forest, my camera slung over my shoulder, but my mind completely open. It was there, deep in the woods, that I stumbled upon a scene that would become one of my favorite photographs. I had been walking for hours, the air thick with damp moss and the scent of pine, when I found a clearing where the sun broke through the trees in a single golden beam. The light caught the delicate web of a spider, each strand glistening like silver thread in the quiet glow. I crouched down, framing the shot, but as I looked through the lens, I felt a pull to do something different, to move closer. I crouched down, framing the shot, but as I looked through the lens, I felt a pull to do something different. I moved closer, focusing not on the grand scheme, but on the small, intricate moment. The intricate details of the spider's web and how the way the light danced across it. It wasn't an epic landscape shot. It wasn't anything anyone might expect to see in a photography book. But it was me, quiet, reflective, and honest. When I reviewed the photo later, it felt like the most personal image I had ever taken. It wasn't a shot to impress. It wasn't a grand statement about the beauty of nature. And it wasn't a moment I had discovered for myself, one that expressed my own voice and the way that I saw the world. It wasn't about the rules. It was about the feeling. I made another note in my journal. Your voice is not what others expect. It is the truth you see in the world, the story only you can tell. Chapter 6, The Road Ahead. As I neared the end of my journey, I realized the most important lesson I had learned was not about the perfect shot, the right composition, or even the best lighting. It was about trusting myself and my vision, embracing imperfection and letting the world speak to me through my camera. I had come to understand that photography was not just about recording what I saw, but about connecting with what I felt, what moved me, and what made me see the world in a new way. The camera was just a tool, a way to share my perspective with others. But the heart of the image, its soul, was something deeper. It was the story I chose to tell. And that, I realized, was the most important lesson of all. With the final pages of the journal now filled with notes, sketches, and reflections, I closed it with a sense of quiet satisfaction. I had found my voice as a photographer, and along the way, I had found a deeper connection with the world around me. I knew that my journey was far from over, and that photography, like life, would always be a process of discovery, of growth, and of pushing past the ordinary to find the extraordinary. As I packed up my camera and prepared to hit the road once more, I smiled to myself. The journey had only just begun.